My name is Gabriel, and I'm an exchange teacher at Colorado Mountain College. I want my co-workers, students, and friends to know about the mummies of Guanajuato. What you're about to see is not for the faint-hearted. Guanajuato City is the capital of the state of the same name in central Mexico. It is a UNESCO World Heritage Site. It was a silver mining town and played an important role during Mexico's War of Independence. Guanajuato has a remarkable attraction, a mummy museum, featuring over 100 mummies that were formed naturally in the local cemetery. There used to be a law in Guanajuato which required family members of the deceased buried at the cemetery to pay an annual fee. If the fee was not paid for 5 years in a row, the body was exhumed and the crypt would be reused. In 1865, cemetery workers in the Santa Paula Cemetery exhumed the remains of Dr. Remigio Leroy, a medical doctor, and found to their amazement that his body had not decayed but had mummified. The combination of soil conditions and the dry climate in the central region allowed the bodies to dry out naturally before they could decompose. In fact, quite a few of the mummies still have their nails, teeth, and hair. The bodies were placed in tombs 7 rows high. Apparently those in the middle row were more likely to have been naturally mummified. Over time, more bodies were found in this state, and they were placed in the cemetery's building. As word spread, people began to visit the mummies, at first clandestinely. As the mummies gained popularity, a museum was set up near the cemetery for the mummies to be exhibited. The mummies began attracting tourists in the early 1900s. Their popularity really took off after the 1970 movie Santo versus the Mummies of Guanajuato, starring masked wrestler Santo, El Enmascarado de Plata, the man in the silver mask. For kids, he was like a combination of Superman and 007 James Bond. The Guanajuato mummies are some of the strangest ones ever placed on displays. Some are clothed, some aren't. A few are wearing only their socks or shoes. Some are old, others are only infants. One tiny baby mummy is labeled La momia más pequeña del mundo, the smallest mummy in the world. The baby and the mother, who died during a cesarean section, are in the museum. Since there was a cholera outbreak in the city of Guanajuato in 1833, some of the bodies were buried immediately to control the spread of disease. In some cases, the dying were buried alive by accident, hence the reason some of the mummies have horrifying expressions on their face to attest to their death in the tombs. The museum contains a few local legends. For instance, one body was said to belong to a woman who had been buried alive. Her name was Ignacia. When scientific investigators researched the mummy, they concluded that 2 factors suggested this legend was correct. The woman's arms were raised over her face, and her forehead had scratch marks. Today, tourists eagerly stand in long lines to see the mummies created by the climate and soil of Guanajuato. The Museum of the Mummies is one of the creepiest sights in Mexico, and not for the faint-hearted or the squeamish. If you are brave enough, plan a mummy trip to Mexico. See you there, if you dare.